Hello and welcome back to Rocket Pod. We're very excited to be kicking off season 3 today. We are joined by German Lamb. German is a food coach, author, motivational speaker and chef. Funny, I met German over 20 years ago in Boston, and his energy and love of food and his growth mindset left a lasting impression on me. So I thought, why not kick off season 3 with an old friend? So for our listeners out there, German Lamb and I actually met probably over 20 years ago, actually. German is a chef in Boston, a motivational speaker, and is the founder of Glam Foods. And German is really on a mission to bring, I guess, the power of food to the everyday person and has coined freestyle lifestyle. German is also a cancer survivor and actually used food and his life philosophies to actually beat cancer. So welcome to Rocket Pod, German. And I think part of the motivation you coming on today was to really share some of your inspirational stories and philosophies with our listeners, and really kind of just provide a different perspective about food and the relationship people have with food. And also, we'd love to hear some of your experiences and go from there really. So welcome. And so just to kick things off, German, be really interested to hear a little bit about your upbringing, and maybe if there's anyone in your life that maybe had a really big influence from an early age. If we just start there, and then we can kind of follow our noses and kind of see where the conversation leads us.
Sure. First thing, good morning and good afternoon from Boston to London. And everything you just said, where did my story start? Well, it starts with your parents, and it starts where you're born. And I was born in Chile, Santiago. My parents, they were born from China, but then my parents had to immigrate because during that time, China was going through the Japanese War. So think about when there's a war in your country and another country invades you. Mm-hmm. And, it's very challenging, very sad. And also my dad's brother, my uncle, he died. He died from fighting a war. Okay. And so when you're young and you hear stories from your parents of realness about what life really is, it really mentors you to a person that you look in the mirror. I mean, I'm 57 right now. Okay. And I got to say,
you don't look it.
It is gorgeous. It is beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful to the point where every individual in this world has a story from their parents, from their upbringing, where they started, where they are, where they would like to go. But your parents are your mentor. And my dad, he immigrated from China to South America at that time because that was the opportunity for him and for my family. I wasn't born yet, so when he was in Chile, South America, he became an entrepreneur. He became a master butcher. And meaning both my parents, they taught themselves how to communicate with the community and learn Spanish. And to me, that was like, talk about survival of the fittest, that you are in a new country, lack the language, lack the reading, but you find a way to survive and be part of that community. And when you do that, great things happen. You're able to have a conversation, and people see that you're trying hard to be part of the community, But then my dad says, "Hey, we have to leave Chile because of dictatorship, Pinochet." So I was like, "What the heck is dictatorship?" So think about what's going on right now in this country, 2021, a lot of countries right now, and think about dictatorship. I lived it at an early age. I mean, I came into this country, to Boston, 1970, and at that time there was a lot of racial hate between minorities, but we got through it, and I seen it. But now I look at it like, whoa, what happened now is that the respect of individuals are no longer valid. Where before, I lived in this community, it's called the South End in Boston. It's a great community. Yep. And I got exposed to the gay community, the lesbian community, the trans community, blacks, Spanish, whites,
Yeah.
Asians, you name it. It was like a melting pot. It was like a rainbow melting pot. So for me, I look at the world now and I'm just thinking, wow, a lot of people just they can't coexist with different flavors around the world, But
Yeah.
all these flavors that I'm expressing to you and your audience is that it really made me who I am. So,
Yeah.
my philosophy is freestyle. And think about the word holistic. And holistic is a very cold word, right? So if you think about it, you go, what is holistic? It's very confining, But if you say freestyle and think about my background for Zoom, this is my world, You're out on the beach, you see the palm trees, they're moving, the wind, you see the water being fluid, it goes where it wants to go, and you just enjoy it, So it's like you're on this ride in life, and I think that's what I have learned, that you have to embrace it, and you have to open yourself up where you're vulnerable. So in one way, it's like you're surrendering yourself.
That's really nice.
That's really nice. So when you don't surrender yourself, what happens is you become very tense and you become very protective. And when you're very protective, it's really not good for the body, mind, spirit, because what you're really doing is you're taxing on extra pressure that you do not need, Because so one way, as a cancer survivor, but also as a chef, so right now, I consider myself a human engineer, a master chef in food and human with performance, lifestyle, with health and wellness skills. So that really means is that the 4 pillars of life are the body, the mind, the spirit, and food. And I realize people have a very hard time coming up and becoming A+ in those 4 areas. So think about right now, right? We're going through COVID-19, and it's not going to go anywhere because it's a disease. And there's one thing that, I was able to fight and beat cancer was because my immune system was A+. It was strong. I had the foundation. Mm-hmm. And even though I went through my treatment of proton and chemo, I was injected with poison in my system. So my body became Ash Wednesday. And, it's been 4 years from my diagnosis of cancer, April the 18th, 2017. And the 4 years, what I have been doing is I have been rebuilding the body, the mind, the spirit with food. So in one way, it's like you're creating an iPhone. Every year you create an iPhone that is faster, quicker. You're not able to hack it. You're not able to have faults on it. But for the human, you got to take these hands and you got to feel, all the mistakes. And when it comes to cooking, if you do not cook, what happened is these beautiful gifts you got from God, you're not using it. You're not using your sense. You're not using your feeling. You're not using these facial expressions where, you eat oatmeal and someone says, ugh, I hate the texture, and you don't understand that you need these, in one way you call them apps. You need these daily skills to communicate with people.
Yeah, so that's almost just what you've talked about, really. So just going back to your childhood in Santiago, Chile, and Santiago, you were born into an environment where there was that survival instinct and that adaptability. And they do say that from ages of 0 to 7, I think it's almost like show me the man, what they've experienced. So correct me if my math's wrong, but it seems that the first 5 years or so of your life, 4 years, were in Chile, and then you moved to the South End. And like you said, there was this holistic, you were immersed in, a totally different culture, but a really colorful one. But there was always that, your father, your parents, that survival instinct, you adapt, you survive. And that was all, it's almost like preparedness to obviously beat your cancer, but that awareness of your environment. Where did your love of food come? Was that when you were younger? Where did that start? Because I'd love to dive into, the philosophies on food and kind of get into that. But before we dive in there, you've got the survival instinct. Where did the love of food Where did it come? Was it just being exposed to all these different cultures and this richness?
Well, I would say one, I wanted to be a electronic engineer, and I realized I was bored. So I said, okay, what's next? Be a chef. I worked in a restaurant as a dishwasher where my father worked, and also my father was a self-taught chef, because when he came to this country, he couldn't find a job because of his language barrier. So the difference from South America to America, it's totally different. I mean, you're in America and it's like, whoa, it is, it's big. And now you have different communities, different cultures, and you have to learn the language. And if you don't learn the language, guess what happens? You have jobs that you have no other choice. So my dad became a dishwasher because he had to support his family.
Survival.
So I look at my parents, and my dad self-taught to be a chef, and I saw the love, and he read a lot. He had news clipping, any recipe out there from the media, from the books, newspaper.
Wow.
He played with, he made mistakes, but there's one thing I learned. He cooked with love. And that's the thing about being a chef that I saw from an early state. And one thing is that both my parents passed away from COVID-19 last year. And I did I did a speech in front of St. James Church in Boston. And I said to the community, like, how could my parents prepare meals for 50 years and every meal was perfect? And I found out why it was perfect. Because when you're a parent, you give everything to your kids, no matter how bad the situation could be at work or the means or you're surviving. But when you sit down and you come together on a table and you're eating, there's love. That is the only moment where all the pain, all the suffering could vanish, because now the parent is taking whatever protein, whatever grains, whatever vegetables, and they're saying, here it is. And you're eating it as a kid, and all you could think about is you're smiling, your tummy's like, oh man, that was great. So it's like eating a chocolate chip cookie, right? It's nice and warm, it's gooey. And I learned that along the way when I became a chef. And I realized I understood was that a chef, you're an artist, you're an entertainer. And it comes from the body, the mind, spirit, something that, even though I went to culinary school, you really don't become who you are until I worked at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Boston. So for the 4 years that I worked there, I was educated. I was mentored by different chefs around in Europe. And
training ground.
They taught me the techniques, the preparations, and the methods of how to approach things. And that was my foundation. But then I took the foundation that they each taught me, and I created my style of freestyle. So as you could tell, I'm Asian. But besides that, also I added my Latin from South America. So for me, at a young age, I saw and I tasted, and I remember how people cook. And they cook in South America, they cook with pride and love. So whatever you're eating, when you're tasting it, you're falling in love. You're not saying, what is this garbage? Because they don't do that. I mean, they don't make something and give it to a family member or a stranger or a friend and suddenly like, what am I eating, this crap? Or they're like, no, you're eating something like, can I have more, please? Can I have seconds? Can I have thirds? So it's a meaning that it's like it's silent. You don't need to say anything. It's just a culture. And I think the culture is you're welcoming, people into your home, and you're breaking bread, but you're having a dialogue where you get to know one another through food. So
that's really lovely.
For me,
like
right now, my mission is the world lacks the body, mind, spirit of food. And you can tell because you're not in control in those 4 areas. Or you might be, you might be 1 out or 2, but you need 4 out of 4, because these 4 components, as you get older, there's a list of disease that's ready to invade your immune system. And unfortunately, wealth will not prevent injuries. It will not prevent disease. But what will prevent and give you a chance to fight is what I just shared with you. So my book on Amazon, it's called The Dragon Turns to Water, Chef German Lamb Fights Cancer with a Freestyle Lifestyle. So it really says, when I had a midlife crisis, I had to come up with a plan. And I had to make sure my plan was efficient and successful, and I was able to execute it every day.
Wow, that's it. So it might be worth the 4 pillars that you talked about, to kind of go through them one by one, just to kind of refresh what those 4 pillars are. And another thing that kind of interested me just from reading bits of your book, was you talked about being soft like fluid as far as how you kind of conduct your life. You talked about being vulnerable, but you also talk about how you need to, it's almost like spot the weaknesses in your opponents. And obviously, putting a positive spin on it, you can see that folks lack this knowledge or awareness of food and a love of food. So, that could be a weakness in your opponents, but you're actually helping them fill that void. But this contrast between vulnerability and strength, and you mentioned also that you were born, was it the year of the dragon? And, a lot of this freestyle philosophy kind of has this, breathe fire and kind of, well, you got to come up with a plan, but you've got to fight too. So should we go through the 4 pillars, and maybe you can weave those, if it's relevant, kind of weave those things in, this vulnerability and this strength, and do they live in harmony?
Sure. I mean, the first thing is you have to have a mentor. You have to have an icon. And growing up in this country, my icon was Bruce Lee. I went to the movies. I watched his movies. I read his book, but also I took martial arts, and I took the same style that he started with. It's called Wing Chun, and Wing Chun was created by a female nun back in the China days, and she created this style. So think about this: you're a female, and you're fighting against this warlord. You're fighting against this barbarian who is stronger than you. And how can you defeat this opponent? So it's really called about hard and soft. So it's like, you're using your opponent's strength. It's like Goliath versus David. Think about what David did to Goliath. There was no way David should have won. But when you're really having a fight, it's really playing chess. So for me, I'm happy that I love Bruce Lee, and he's a part of me, but also I took his philosophy where he was talking about, the body, turn your body into your version of Bruce Lee, because his DNA is going to help you for what you need to do. So it makes your body quicker, faster. You're sculpturing it. So think about, the body. I work out 7 days a week. I do 4,000 sit-ups a week. So think about that. And
that's more than me.
But I created a program that works for me because, I do yoga, I do Pilates, strength training. So you add and you combine all these lovely skills that are out there, and you create it how you want to make it, right? So think about that. The body, the minute you're born, the body's not going to become Bruce Lee. Someone has to mentor you. Someone has to teach you about fitness, and teach you about the mind. I mean, right now, do you know what's right? Do you know what's wrong? So that's a very key point right now in our society. It's like, if you don't know what's right, what's wrong, then how can you become your personal best? So in the mind, I have 3 icons, or you can say 4. Bruce Lee, Jackie Robinson, amazing baseball player. And why do I pick Jackie Robinson? Because think about what he has done when he started back then. He was this athlete player, and he was a 4-star athlete at UCLA. Think about that, 4-star athlete. You don't see that today, that you're able to play 4 sports in a year. And because of his race, because he was African American, he had a lot of challenges, but it did not
made him stronger,
defeat him or destroy him. It just made him think of how can I work around the system, and he did. And he had class, he had dignity, and he had a presence. And my other person, Bill Russell, African American, played 13 years in the basketball world, and he won 11 championships. So talk about really cashing in on your stock. You got 11 championships, and that means the 2 years that you didn't capture those rings, that's okay because you got 11. So that's an impressive streak. Even today in society, no one has even completed. But also, why? Because all those 3 individuals I just mentioned, they were suppressed. They were suppressed because of their color, their culture, and they showed the world of, hey, let me show you this art that I love, And my other one is Confucius. So if you think about those 4 people I just mentioned, you could take their life lesson and you could actually kind of create a hybrid in today's society. So you always need someone that does something totally different, right? So then it comes to spirit. This is probably the most important. Like you were saying, I was born of the year of the dragon, and that means I am vicious. I am vengeance. I will destroy you. But then you have to be fluid like water. And that's the whole key thing. You have to be fluid. So you have to be hard and soft. So like during my cancer treatment, I was not able to eat for 6 weeks because of my treatment. But I was amazed that I got through it. So now when I do my presentation and I talk to the audience, I'm saying, hey, the mind, the body, and the spirit is so powerful. But the only way it becomes one is when there's an opponent that's going to say, I'm going to kill you. And that's when everything that you have learned in life will fall in place. So if you do not have an opponent, you're not going to be your personal best. That's how it really works. So for me, cancer, I have to respect cancer from day one. Because if I don't respect cancer from day one, it's going to kill me. Think about what's going on with COVID-19. There are people out there who do not respect the disease. And you know what's going to happen. So in one way in life, like in the kitchen, there are 3 things that I teach: sanitation, safety, and respect. So if these 3 areas you do not understand, then you have an issue. You cannot survive and be a solution in society, because these 3 things, you as a human, your body has to be sanitized. It has to be clean. So this way you don't have any disease, any infection growing in you. Respect yourself, respect others.
Yeah. Okay. So do you believe that there's any bad food? What's your philosophy on food in general? We touched on this when we chatted last week, and I've just be interesting for our listeners out there. Yeah, how do you view food?
Well, that's a great question. Hey, I worked at the Ritz, #1 brand in the world, but also I worked at McDonald's, another #1 brand in the world. And I look at it, and I work there. I eat. But now, as we get older, when you have maturity, you understand there's a plus and there's a minus. So if you want to eat food that are minus, then what's going to happen to you? Your body will not become your personal best. You will go south. You will go in different areas, sideways, and you can go frontways. And now what happened is your body has been a balloon, because the food that you're eating in time, it's going to shape your body differently. In one way, it's going to place you in a position that now you got to think about obesity, heart attack, stroke, diabetes. cancer. So now you really understand it. But for me to be this master chef that I am right now, I had to taste everything that's out there. So there's not one food I could say I don't like, where a lot of people would say, well, I hate this, or I don't like this. So it's like knowledge. You take the good, you take the bad, and you take the ugly, and it has its purpose. It has its purpose. So for me, there's nothing wrong. Hey, you're driving and there's a drive-through. There's nothing wrong with that, because the foundation you have is 99%. So if you eat a hamburger, fry, hot dog, pizza, fried chicken, sub, it's not going to destroy it, because your foundation is 99%. So here's another thing when it comes to food. Think about pureness and think about love, right? The minus, it has love, but that love is short fused. You eat it and it's gone. It's like, where's that love? Where the plus side, it comes from the earth. You have your protein, your vegetables, your grains, your dairy, your fruit, and you take food from Mother Nature, and now you think about, okay, what am I going to apply? It's like you're taking onions, carrots, celery, and you're taking some grains, and you go, oh my God, I could create amazing plant-based food, or I could add a protein from the sea or from the land. So I realize in society, no one teaches you this. They teach you how to make money. They teach you how to make money. They teach you, go to a great institution of education, but what good is it? Suddenly, you have wealth, and now you're 30 and you're obese, or suddenly you're like a skeleton. So
I was just thinking it's good habits, and it's this compound effect. And like you said, if the foundation is right, if the focus is on, I guess there's, like we said, there's no good or bad food, but if your focus is on, if you're mindful, if you're eating mindfully, and you're aware in the moment what you're putting in your body, and you can enjoy it, and if you're in a position to prepare it with love or to share it with your loved ones and friends and family, then there's going to be room for the unhealthy stuff, because that doesn't matter, because your foundation is right in the first place. But I almost think that one thing that I've actually struggled with in the past is living in the moment, not living in the past or in the future, right here and now. And I think we're quite often we'll be consuming food and not being aware of what we're eating. We're just we're just using it as fuel. But I do like the idea of just listening to you talk about actually just being a bit more mindful and setting time aside to enjoy food.
Well, those areas you just mentioned, James, the only thing we can control in society is the body, mind, spirit, and food. Those are the only elements that we could have and focus on and connect with them. Everything else in life, it's like, it's like water, it's fluid. Wherever it goes, it goes. And to me, awareness is a key thing. Awareness in yourself. And if I didn't have the awareness of my body not feeling right, where, I had nose cancer in my nose, and, my team was MGH, the best in the world, the best hospital in the world, the best treatment in the world. They couldn't even diagnose this cancer that I had. And by the time they found it, it was the size of my thumb. So think about that, the size of my thumb, and how long has this been grown in my nose without me even noticing it. But here's the fascinating thing about my story. If I did not notice something wasn't right, I would have had brain cancer. So if I would have had brain cancer, we would not be having this podcast. I would not be able to write a book about my journey. I would have been a vegetable, because think about what the brain is at and what's going to happen when you have poison and radiation. It's going to destroy the good stuff. So for me, my whole experience right now, my storytelling with people is saying you could actually save your life at your current stage or your future stage. Because if you have no awareness, especially in the medical field, I have gone to too many funerals where friends, family have lost with cancer, because when I call it, you have this monster growing in your system. And if you don't feel it, then what usually happens is, in most cases, is that when you go to the doctor says, we can't help you, because the disease has now become crabgrass. It's too powerful. You can't destroy it. So, for me, that's something so powerful that, the doctors can only help you when there's time. So that's another key thing in society is I learned from my experience that we really don't have time. So if you always put things off the next day, then what you're really doing is all this energy and focus and commitment that you have, you're just kind of watering it down instead of actually completing the task today. Because with me, I had to come up with a plan of how am I going to approach my treatment and survival, and I had a plan, and the plan was fight today so I could live another day tomorrow and fight again. So it's like in cooking is concentrate on that scrambled egg that you're making, or, cooking that steak, and focusing on where is it going. Because if you lose, the focus, that scrambled egg now is going to be overcooked. Or better yet, it's going to be undercooked. So now you're eating it and you're like, oh, what is this running egg here, right? Or you're having a nice piece of steak and you're cutting it and it's like, it's all gray now. It's not even pink. It's like, where's the juices? So it's something that in my world, and especially in the culinary world, is so powerful, because here's another thing. It taught me how to nourish myself correctly. It taught me how to teach my family how to cook properly the right way. So it's a life skill that most people don't realize that, sure, I can go out and someone can make food for me on a daily basis, but it's like sit-ups. You don't do 4,000 sit-ups per week, your stomach doesn't become like a washboard. And why is it important to become a washboard? Because think about cancer, right? There's a lot of cancer that grows in your stomach. And right now there's a lot of people where their stomach is not where it is right now. But it's finding help. And I think that's the key thing of, my journey and, this podcast that we're doing is we're helping others, because you always need a human. An app can't see your blemishes, can't see how you look. How we're talking right now, we're connecting. And I think when you see someone and they're so passionately, you're like, okay, why is this person so passionate? Why is he telling me his story?
Yeah, it's fascinating. So for those listeners out there that perhaps haven't picked up or haven't been aware of, they haven't developed a love for food, where do they start? And also, were you doing 4,000 sit-ups before your cancer treatment? Because 4,000 seems like an awful lot.
Well,
I think needs.
Your first question: how do people start? Well, usually when it comes to food, people don't cook for themselves. They're having a certain battle in their heart. They don't love themselves. Because if you're taking food and you're nourishing yourself and you're not having the time, the patience, the education of researching how to approach it, how to make it, then you're just kind of like letting yourself go. There's a reason. It's like being a parent. We have to nourish our kids the right way. So in the 18 years, when they leave the house, they have survival skills. So they know how to love themselves. And think about food. Well, there's addiction, right? There's the eating disorder. There's addiction to drugs. There's addiction to alcohol. I mean, the profession that I worked in, I saw it as part of it. And I realized that is, to have love, it comes from the parent. So if the parents don't teach you, if the parents don't show you this from the minute you're born until their time is complete, then you're really going to pass this darkness in you where it affects your relationship, it affects your marriage, it affects your friendship. It just fucks you up. Excuse my French, but it does some serious damage to you, and because I have seen this, and when it comes to food, is don't judge what the food is. It's like seafood, during my treatment, I was eating oysters, and I didn't realize at the time was when you eat oysters, you increase your white blood cells. So why would you want to increase your white blood cells? Because it protects your immune system. So how can you get certain things from food? And when I was going through my treatment, I had blood tests all the time just to check where my blood would be. And it would tell my doctors, okay, are you in a danger point? And I was able to eat sushi. I tried eating, meatloaf, chicken, and, food that was cooked, but then I realized it was dry and it didn't have life. So that's another thing. To have life in the world, you need food that has life. You can't eat food like when you're talking about, fast food. Fast food doesn't have life. Fast food has short-term view. So to me, a lot of people are not exposed to seafood. Well, so is exposure in life. And if I never worked at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, I won't be the person I am today. Or it's culinary, service-wise, and business-wise. So it really taught me about, etiquette, business savvy, but also teaching someone. So for me, that is my skill. I could take a kid, I could take anyone, whatever age, and they're going to fall in love with the food. Because that's what usually happens when I prepare a meal for someone. They fall in love because they're like, oh my God, it tastes amazing. I'm like, yeah, because that's my job. My job in the culinary world is to make you happy. Yeah. That's what customer service is to make sure that you have an amazing day. And sometimes people don't understand that. The profession that you go into, that's what we do, is to make you happy. Whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snack, whatever it is, is to give you that sense. But now here's the next question. You can
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were asking me what's the next question.
No, but here's the thing with freestyle. You can make it better because you haven't added your ideas.
Yeah, it's yours, isn't it? It's yours. You own it, basically. You own it. So your freestyle is going to be different to my freestyle. I think it sends a really good message that, if you're not setting aside the time to think about cooking or what you're consuming, then it's time to start. So it's not too late. You just start now. And actually it reminds me, just a little light bulb moment went off. So years ago, shortly after I got married, when I lived in New England, my father-in-law was a dentist, a guy called Vance Horn, a very good dentist in Maine. He's retired now. He always said that as far as exercise, he scheduled it in as part of his workday. So every day he scheduled in 2 hours and he would go for a 5-mile run or whatever. And at the time I was pretty much out of shape. But the fact that he knew that if he did his exercise, he would perform better. Well, he was a very, one of the best dentists in New England. That was part of his workday. So it's almost like with food, we need to be aware that it's really important. This nourishment of our body, it's going to make us happier. And if we're a bit more mindful, if we're in the moment, then we're going to be putting better things in our mouth. And I love the idea of this, food that's alive. It might be, it's really colorful. And if it doesn't have color, then it's probably it's going to be dead food, isn't it? I mean, I guess grains aside, but, this whole awareness. So maybe actually, the exercise, check, that's important. And then you've got this, your nourishment piece and food, and why not love doing it? And, just chatting to you, you're going to be happier. I feel happy talking about food with you. So it's interesting.
I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to our amazing sponsor, Flexi. These days we have multiple subscriptions from streaming services to gift boxes and much more. Discover Flexi's unique subscription marketplace sourced from independent British brands, from organic beauty products, cocktail kits and responsibly sourced coffee to plant-based meals, gift boxes and much more. Whatever your passion, look forward to a regular box of joy delivered straight to your door. All easy to pause, cancel or resume in a tap or two from one single dashboard. So give Flexi a try. It's free to download from the App Store or head over to www.flexiapp.uk. That's FLEXYAPP.uk. Now, back to our guest.
Well, you know what? Think about mental health right now, James. Out of nowhere, this word mental health is on the top of the list of where people are having issues. And I said, my program is the solution for mental health, obesity, homelessness, addiction. Because why? Because you have 4 components. Like you asked me, the body. Well, the body has to be able to train. You got to put it in a boot camp. And usually when people start, when you look in the mirror, I always say this, can you say that to yourself when you look in the mirror every day, that you are like a Picasso, you're Michelangelo, that you are this specimen, but you created it. You created it with these hands, right? You got your hands dirty, you were washing dishes, you were cutting, vegetables, the protein, and you started using your mind to think, and now your mind knows what's right. Now your spirit, it's alive. If you're a female, you're a phoenix. You're the most powerful, creature in the world. You're smarter than guys, really, because females are much more in tune. They're much more in tune of who they really are. They're very detailed. They're very focused. Where guys, I call them, we're caveman. We're caveman. It takes a while for the brain to actually mature and understand knowledge. So if you really think about this, it's an evolution right now that if you really think about what's happening right now and you're trying to make a difference, but you're trying to compete in a business world, think in a business market, right? In a business world, I tell, people that I meet, the CEOs and presidents, like, hey, you should put me on your board of trustees. Why? Because I'm going to be the person that's going to make sure that, these guys are not going to have a baby shower. Think about that. Why? Because you need these guys to perform to their capabilities. But once a guy looks like they're ready for a baby shower, that's really bad. That's a bad sign, because eventually it's going to get out of control.
What do you mean by baby shower? Because I think some of our listeners might not know what you mean.
All right. Baby shower is, most of my guy friends in college and working, they were like this. They had a washboard body. So when you give a guy your friend a hug, there's nothing between. But now when I'm giving my guy friends a hug, there's something in between. And I look down, I'm like, where did that come from, man? That never came from. So I my line with my friends is like, hey, when's the baby shower? They're like, what are you talking about? I say, hey, dude.
Gotcha.
So I said,
Gotcha.
All right. So I said, your stomach looks like you're ready for, is it a twin? Is it a triplet? Please tell me. And tell me the names, you're gonna be famous, right? You're gonna be famous as the first guy to give birth. So I use that as like tongue in cheek, something not hurtful, but something that, and I believe you always need a German lamb in your life, because you could think health and wellness, but what good is it if you are in a circle at work and no one talks about like what we're talking about?
So do you run like a mastermind group, or how do you work with people? Do you coach them one-on-one? Is there like a community that you run to share ideas, or how do you normally spread this knowledge?
Well, 2 ways. There's individual and there's also team building. And I found out what I love about team building is, when you're talking to a group of people, is that everyone in that group has the answer to help the next person. So what you're really doing is you're creating a support. You're creating a support unit.
Yeah.
So one way I'm the one doing the storytelling, but I would like you to help your coworkers, help your friends, help your family. And when you support one another, you're able to have results, right? So think about this. It's the end of the year now. A few more weeks. It's going to be the end of the year. And then we're going to have 2022. And what does everyone do in the whole world? We do New Year resolution, right? We think about, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to be gung ho. We're going to eat well. We're going to exercise. And not even a month later, you crash and burn. You're not committing. So I came up with this philosophy is what you need to do is you need to reboot daily. So think about right now, right?
Yeah, resolutions don't always work, do they?
Yes. So why do we reboot our computers and phones? Because there's a bug in it, and if we don't reboot it, it's going to slow down the computer. It's going to slow down the phone. So I came up with this idea in saying if you reboot daily, the minute you wake up to the minute you finish your evening and go to sleep, you would have accomplished more than ever before. Because now, before the week is over, before the month is over, you would have finished off and crossed off, and now you say, wow, I got 11 months left. What am I going to do with 11 more months? Oh my God, I'm going to do amazing things. So I broke down, so it's like, micro and macro. You got the big, you got the small, right? Mm-hmm. The big picture is you want to live with life, but you want to be content. So here's another word, contentment. You have to be content in the journey that you're at right now. Because if you're not content, then you're mad, you're frustrated, and you're going to rub off on your family, your friends, your coworkers, and so one way you're venting. So I think that's what humans do, right? If you have darkness, it goes into people that you communicate with. And the next thing you're like SOB. Like, what happened to this gentleman? So it's something that, the spirit lives off you and it transferred into you, James. Think about this podcast we're having, right? People might go, this is not fantasy. This is realness right here. So I always say to people, I would challenge you. I would challenge your program versus the freestyle program. And I will tell you this much. Have your blank check ready for me. Why? Because you're going to be amazed that from the moment now until whenever, you are going to be an icon. And what I mean by an icon is you're going to be able to master the art in your career path, in your family, in your community. But the best thing is you will create a legacy that would say, oh my God, I can't believe James did all this stuff for society. That is the goal in life, right? The goal in life is, as humans, is to be a citizen of the world when there's cancer out there. So that's the only way we are going to come back with respect and peace and harmony and family.
I like that very much. You talk about our opponents and that preparedness to kind of fight. Sorry, this is how I interpreted it. But it's almost like when you talk about the darkness. So we all have. I mean, I believe that there's always, where there's light, there's dark. So I think they can't live. It's almost like the yin yang. You can't. They kind of live in harmony. But it's almost like if you can use the darkness to channel goodness, that's almost your opponent. I mean, you talked about cancer as being your opponent, and you really fought, and your fight and your plan saved your life. And it was also the preparedness up to that point. But everyone's going to have different degree or different opponents. It might be that they're really feeling a bit blue. And if they keep, what did Einstein say? If you keep doing the same thing, then you're going to get the same results. And I guess what you're proposing here is something a little different. This idea that we can actually use food almost as a vehicle to a better life and to strength, to kind of fight whatever your opponent is, whether it's like I said, depression or cancer, or is it, are you unemployed? Are you just miserable? Maybe miserable is your opponent, and you want to be, turn that, that unhappiness into happiness. Everyone's going to have a different view on what they need to fight.
Well, that's what I did with darkness, because I had a lot of darkness when I got diagnosed. But even every day I wake up, I still have the darkness. So in one way, yesterday I went to my doctor's appointment, and I have a MRI and a PET scan every year just to make sure I don't have any aliens growing in me. And I said to my doctor, I said, hey, thank you for saving me. Thank you for making me alive. But then I realized the first day when I met my doctor, she says, okay, great. And I call her the Dragon Lady, because she's a dragon slayer. She kills cancer. And
brilliant.
And she says, okay, Jeremy, we could destroy this cancer in your nose, but get ready. You could have 19 more tumors any given moment. So I was like, holy, I was like, oh, I was like, I said, then it brought me to reality. And I think in life, when you ask questions, do you get good answers that prepare you for life's journey? Not just giving you an answer for the moment, because you could become your personal best when someone actually have your best interests, not your personal interests, but your best interests. So for me, it's like you're speaking from the heart. And when you speak from the heart, there is no wrong. I don't have to say I'm sorry. I don't have to say, well, I'm sorry that I used that word, that I offended you. I'm not offending you. I'm just saying to you that I'm on this roller coaster ride for the rest of my life. Why? Because any given moment, I could have a tumor, a cancer tumor, invade my whole system, and I would have to start all over again. And I, made a commitment to myself that if that ever happens, I'm ready to cut the heads off. I'm ready to do what I need to do to make sure that, I see my family and I see my grandkids in the future. So for me, it's like I'm planting the seed and saying, I want to make sure that, I don't have any other disease that it's going to disrupt my lifestyle in life, So because in life, just because you have one disease doesn't mean you're not going to get dementia, doesn't mean you're going to get diabetes, doesn't mean you're going to get a heart attack or stroke. So I concentrate on the reality of the world, that I realize that, the way I'm coming from, it's a breath of fresh air, because I'm waking you up and I'm teaching you that, okay, great. You're a billionaire. Yeah, but you're not going to win against the disease. It's going to destroy you so quick, so fast, if you don't have some of the skills that I'm teaching you about, because this is the only hope that you have. You remember that. And when I took my proton and chemo treatment, 75% of the patient cannot go through with this treatment. And do you know why? Because they are obese. Think about that. Right. 75%. So that means you just put yourself in a situation where if something happened to you, you cannot even take advantage of the treatment, because your body can't finish the program. So that's why, most people don't like, radiation and chemo, because it's poison. It's destroying yourself. But you have to think about it as you want to live. And when you live, deal with the consequences as they come along. So it's like each day you're thinking about, what do I need to do to be my personal best?
Yeah, that's a really good message, German. And actually, it's kind of it's that adopting that growth mindset, isn't it? Like you said, there could be 17 other tumors, and in fact, I'll share something with you. So just before we dialed into this podcast, I had a call from a friend of mine who is having a really, really difficult time. And I didn't have a lot of time, but I gave him 10 minutes, and he said that I don't know what's going on. Everything I do keeps turning into crap. And he's lost a bunch of money, and he's just in a really, really bad way. But it's almost like, I tried to encourage him to, adopt just a different mindset that, we're always going to get problems coming at us, but it's how we deal with them. And it's just almost like you're ready for it. But mentally, I think you're having a really difficult time. But he has the capabilities, he has the smarts, he has everything, but just having a really difficult time. But I think if you look after yourself, exercise, eat well, take time out for yourself, and not just be on the hamster wheel all the time, you can kind of take on anything. And I think that's what you're talking about, this freestyle mindset. It's, it's the preparedness, it's the mindfulness, it's the intention. You're intentionally putting good stuff in your body. And it's this love thing that we talked about as well. It's if we give ourselves permission to take time out to, do something as simple as preparing a lovely meal, and just develop these good habits and this daily reset. I love that because, again, it's the compound effect, because we can kind of go through life blind, but actually, we have a finite number. We don't live forever, and we don't know what's going to hit us, do we, health wise or any otherwise. So it's like, how can we kind of run into these situations with at our best?
Well, you just mentioned, right? We can't prevent a disease. We cannot prevent an injury. But what we could do is we could fight each battle, each day, and fight. And here's another challenge. Learn to mentor someone. Because if you could become your personal best, then you're actually sharing with a coworker, your spouse, your friend, society, and teaching someone how to become your personal best. And I think when you do that, it's like, instead of you writing a blank check to a charity, anyone could do that. But if you're able to go there and share your story with total strangers who are really, homeless, that's what they need. And for me, that's what I have done in life. Like, there's this homeless person at the church we go to, and his name is Roy. He's African American, and I just said to him, like, "What's your name?" And I started talking to him, and I said, "Hey, dude, you came into this world not to live like this. For you to live on the street, you're intelligent. You are super smart because you have to have a plan." And I said, "Now I would like you to go back to society and prove everyone who did not help you, everyone who looked at you and didn't give you a chance to do greatness in life." And I said that to him. I said, that's what you are here for in this world, because your parents didn't have you to be number 2 or number 3. They had you to be number 1. So even though you might have some bad luck, and I said to him, why don't you teach all the other friends that you have met who are homeless? Rise from the ashes.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me this smile, like with tears. And I'm like, and to me, that's what life is about, that you can actually talk to a total stranger. They don't want your money.
Give them hope.
Yeah, give them hope.
But,
yeah, there's that.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, planting the seed and just giving people the time of the day. There's also that other. I think there's a story. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but there was a homeless man sitting on a wooden box, and he was saying, "I'd like he'd like some money," and then one stranger stopped by and said, "Look under the box." So he said, "What do you mean, look under the box?" He said, "Look under the box." So the guy looked under the box, and it was full of gold. And I guess the analogy is, it's like quite often, well, we've all got the answers inside of us to improve our life. It's just we just need to look inside sometimes. But I think planting a seed, giving someone an idea, is it's very inspiring. So, German, we're kind of running out of time. I've just wondered a couple of things, actually. So, if you were to meet anyone for a coffee in the world, who would that be?
I would meet teenagers that are freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. And the reason why I would do that is because, they need mentoring, and they need a seed planted in them to be an icon. And the reason why I would talk to a teenager versus maybe a established professional is that, when you're established professional, you're like a dog. It's hard to learn new tricks. I mean, it's like, you're just wasting away. And where a teenager, I said, you don't have bad habits. You really don't have bad habits because you're able to recover quicker and faster than the veteran. The guy who's older has a lot of baggage, and they just don't see the hope that they could accomplish it, where someone who was young, vibrant, and maybe ignorant, because not by choice, they just haven't met the mentor that kind of make them think and make them feel alive, but make them feel like there is a purpose. So to me, that's what I would like to say, talk to a teenager, because our teenager right now, it's our hope for the future for their grandkids. People who are in positions now, look at the mess that's happening. They couldn't change it now. What do you think they're going to change it? So one way, when you talk about cancer, the problem has been rooted so deep in society, into this earth, that the only hope you have is it's like a David, a normal person, a normal human being, a female, male, trans, gay, Liz, and say you are the beacon of light, man. So that's why I look in society right now. Society has changed. Think about it. 20 years ago, we met James. Who thought that right now we would be having a podcast, right?
Absolutely. It's crazy, isn't it? I know, I'm feeling old. Amazing. Okay, so with that, we do actually have a lot of young listeners. So what piece of advice would you leave them with? I know we've covered lots of different topics today, but what message would you send out as your closing statement?
My closing statement would be become your personal best, A+, with the body, mind, spirit, with food. That is the recipe where you would be great in life. Everything else is just part of the package. But these 4 pillars, they have to be your temple. They have to be your foundation. And when you understand, respect, and cherish them, it's not like a car. You can get new parts. For the body, you can't get new parts. So you have no idea, whether you have all your limbs. You might not have all your limbs, but the greatness is you have a mind. And I think the mind hasn't been challenged and tested. And that's what I love about what I do on a daily basis. Like what is meeting other CEOs, presidents, because you want to help them create a legacy where they look back at it and they go, yeah, we did some amazing things together. So that's the message to close right here and to the world. Reach out to me, because once you listen to my story and we have a conversation, your life has been changed already, because you're using your ears, you're using your eyes, and using your mouth to say words, to hear words, and to look at someone that will motivate you to say, I could be my personal best.
That's fantastic. So how do our listeners find you, German? How do they find you? Do you have any social handles or any resources that our listeners can access?
Sure. I mean, hey, one is LinkedIn. My name, German Lamb. And once you go on LinkedIn, it will connect you to all my other, social media. I am on Instagram. I am on Twitter, on Facebook. But for me, when you go there, my message is the same thing. It's very simple. It's very plain. You know what I mean? There is no glam to it, and you are the glam. Remember that you are the prize in life. And here's this: perfection does exist in this world, but it only exists with you. No one else. you can make it perfect. You can make the body the way you want it. You can have that mind inspire people when you have a conversation. Your spirit could uplift people when you're in a board meeting, and now your presence, you don't have to say a word. But then the food, that would be the part, because people will go, wow, and you will help them, right? You will teach them change about different cultures, different food. I mean, that's one thing. If you stay one dimension, if you eat one type of food for the rest of your life, that's how you will be. There's no life in you, even though that food could be amazing, could be great. But what happened to the rest of the world?
Mm.
So I would say this, when you ask me about my question, like, how did my journey start? I look back at it, I'm like, you know what? I met a lot of people who mentored me and who loved me. And also I met a lot of people who I worked with who were SOBs, who were just bad people. And they helped me, because I'm thinking, wow, how can you treat someone because of, you don't want to turn them into an icon? You don't want to turn them better than you, right? So one way what you're doing is you're suppressing them because you don't want them to be better. And to me, I tasted life, and to me, to those people who I work with who inspire me at the Ritz-Carlton, you're my family. And to the ones that show me the darkness and the cancer that you are, I'm like, that's your legacy. Your legacy is, there's two types of people right now when you meet. Are they an icon who inspires you, or are they a cancer? And that's what life is right now. If you really think about what life is right now, there are two types: cancer and icon. Icon is trying to create a solution to help people become better. Cancer, They don't want you, for whatever reason, gender, religion, who you are, they don't want you to succeed. And unfortunately, that's the beauty of the world, right? The yin and yang, right? So now can you change it? Yes, but it starts with you. But first of all, James, I appreciate your busy schedule and time to giving me this stage to actually share the story with your audience. So hopefully I will hear back from your audience through social media.
Yeah. No, I think there's some pearls of wisdom here, and you're truly inspiring. I mean, you beat the odds and you're here, and it's been really enjoyable, and thank you so much for your time. And I love the palm tree and the beach scene in the background.
Well,
for those that can't see German, he's superimposed on a beach with palm trees.
So that is my world right there. If you're asking me, like, Mother Nature, Earth, and think about climate change. Climate change comes back to you with vengeance. And if you think about what's going on in society and the world, there's a reason why Mother Nature is destroying things. And what's really saying to the human being is, here's a message I'm giving you. Respect it, honor it, protect society. If you don't, I'm going to wipe you out. And that's one thing with water, right? Water is the most powerful resource out there. What does it do to society, right? Think about what it did to Atlantis. It placed them underwater, right? But you know what, James? It would be great if we're able to do a continuation from this podcast, from what you hear from your audience, because we could be doing multiple podcasts, and it will be an evolution of where we started from.
Well, we'll catch up in a bit of time, and we'll see where we're at. That sounds like a great idea. But anyway, thank you so much again for coming on Rocket Pod, and check out German Lam. He said you can find him on LinkedIn. That's German like the country, and then LAM. And I know that German would love to hear from you, and reach out and connect that way. Brilliant. Well, thank you. Right.
Thank you so much for tuning in today as we spent a bit of time with German. A couple of takeaways that I loved. If you want to have life in the world, you need to eat food with life. And he also mentioned that there's 4 things as humans that we can control. It's body, mind, spirit, and food, what we consume. It's really inspiring to hear some of the challenges that German overcame, just being in tune with himself and the love of food and being in the moment, being in the present was really inspiring. If you get a moment, we'd love it if you could jump over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, rate our podcast and leave a review. We love all your messages. It helps us get exposure to inspire and share more stories, and it gives us an idea of what you're looking for our upcoming episodes. And of course, special thank you to Flexi, our sponsor, the single destination for subscriptions, whether it be beer, food boxes, soap, beauty boxes, you name it, all controlled by a single dashboard. Head over to flexiapp.uk, that's flexyapp.uk. And if you do decide to purchase a subscription, if you type in RocketPod25 at checkout, it will give you 25% off your first box. Have an amazing week ahead, and we'll see you next time. We've got a great lineup of guests on their way. We look forward to seeing you again. Take care. Bye-bye.